All right, man. So you're telling me a story about your flooding, your chemistry flooding.
That was my first experience. My first go around at science. I was trying to make a Borromean ring. No idea what I was doing. I was like, yeah, DCM. What's it gonna do? It's like all over my arm, just like bathing in DCM.
And for the lay folks, DCM stands for
dichloromethane.
Right.
Still remember two chlorines, 2 methyls, 1 carbon.
Yeah.
Actually, no, 2 hydrogens. Jesus.
Well, there you go. So even the chemist
forgot
messes up.
Yeah.
All right. So that's why you use acronyms, because we always forget what.
That's right. That's right. Acetonitrile is what?
Right. All right. So you're bathing in DCM.
Bathing in DCM.
You flooded the place.
Reflux, and it was a reflux party. Didn't clamp on. Water's gushing out everywhere. The hose is on 5th floor. And then something happened. I don't know what happened. I got a phone call at 11 o'clock at night. And then water just went from the 5th floor to the 4th floor to the 3rd floor to the 2nd floor. And the grad student I was working with, Carrie, she was super nice. She was like, well, if you did do it, you probably should learn from this experience.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's a great lesson in failure.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a bunch of those to talk about.
Oh, yeah. I fail at lots of things. A lot of learnings.
Exactly. You have to fail a bunch. And then then you met someone that turned you on to this group you were saying?
Synthetic biology. It was this guy, Ayub Khatak. I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but it's something like that. But he was the CEO of Q Health, which was like this huge San Diego company down here. Okay. And nice guy. He got me into synthetic biology. And then I did like this 90-degree pivot from chemistry into biology. And then I was doing like cloning and PCR and all this other stuff. No idea what I was doing. And then I was not good at 2 things. And then I was like, let's just go to grad school so I could maybe learn both in parallel. Just go through this brutally terrible experience of learning nature. It's pretty bad, but it wasn't that bad. You learn a lot.
Yeah.
And then
so you're comfortable not being good at things because you're as a kid. Yeah, that's right. Well, no, it's necessary because a lot of times people are so arrogant they stop doing stuff because they're not good at it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good when you're not good at things because that's where you actually have growth.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people flatline. They're like, I'm good at one thing and I'm gonna do this forever, and it's like, no, it's not good. I like to fail.
Yeah. You have to come back to that. But so with respect to like the 10,000 hours to reach proficiency, I don't think I think it's much bigger of a number. Yeah. It's probably like more like 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what 10,000 hours translates to in terms of normal, but it's 10 years or more before you even start approaching proficiency.
Yeah.
So you need to have total grit and expect to hang with something if you're going to really be good at it.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you obviously you don't give up easily. Is what you're saying either.
No.
Yeah.
No. I have this one thing where I'll I want to do something and then I like lock in and then that's the only thing I see and I just black out and then like months will go by and I have no idea what's happening and then like someone like will text me or call me and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was in the Matrix just doing stuff and then but I think you kind of have to have like crazy focus because otherwise like it's just distraction. If you're distracted all the time, you're just never gonna make headway.
I think you have to have some level of mind-body separation, right?
100%.
Where you for me, I know as doing coding, sometimes I'll be, and now because you're doing a lot of coding, but I did a lot over the years. Yeah. And I used to sit in a chair sometimes for like 12 hours. Now I'm having to pee like 8 times in that period. But now later, when I was a kid, I mean, my neck would be just jacked, and I just totally tune it out, and it's just your brain just firing, and you're the zone. I totally get it.
Yeah, it's like you're connected.
Yeah,
you're connected to the thing. Yeah, and then you're just this one thing. You're like, it's like this symbiosis, new life form that like emerges, and then.
But so you actually, I thought you were an athlete too. Did you do that at UCLA, or did you do that at Scripps?
I did do sports.
Yeah.
I definitely hit my limit. I had like this growth spurt when I was in 6th grade, and I went from like 5'2" to like 6 foot, and then that was it. That's like.
But so you were towered over everyone at that age.
I know. I was like, I remember I was like playing this. I was in NJB. It was like this basketball thing, and I was a giant, and like these little kids were like trying to shoot, and I was like, ah, it's like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's like swatting away, like Mutombo, like shaking my finger at him. And I did that like it was just like it was embarrassing. I blocked like 7 shots in a row, and I remember I felt bad, and I thought I was like the king of the world. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be like 6'5", and then my body was like, no, we're gravity, we're good.
Yeah, so you reached your physical limitations. So sports kind of got phased out before you got to the collegiate level.
And then I got like stilts for legs. Yeah. So like I tore both my ACLs. So I tore this one in football and this one in basketball. I think I tore it 3 times.
Wow, you got them repaired or not?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Some people go without, and they just kind of have these wobbly knees.
I know. And then I had Cyclops syndrome on this one. So, like, I had scar tissue under my patella. And I remember at UCLA, I was walking around, and I was, like, trying to, like, you know, I would be studying, and my leg would be locked in an L, 90 degree. And then because of the scar tissue, I would, like, raise my knee up, and my patella wouldn't track. So my patella would get stuck when I was bending it, and then it was like it would ricochet, and I had just to grind it, just to grind out the scar tissue until it was actually gone, and then I'd have surgery again. So
man, brutal. Well, so so you're used to both mental and physical pain, is what you're getting at.
Yeah, it's good.
So
builds character.
Then so you do the grad work, and then did you do a postdoc, or did you go right into?
No, that's a wild story. So I had no idea what I wanted to do really, and then I was in a lab that was known for not publishing papers. My thesis is still not published. I don't know if it's ever gonna get published.
You gotta be kidding me!
Yeah, and I graduated. And I worked for this company called Q, and then within 4 days they were like, "This isn't gonna work. You got like this independent mindset. It's not going to work." But I think it's because like in grad school, I was like a feral human because it was just me on this one project for 6 years. I worked with nobody to get this thing done. So it was just like grinding, running thousands of experiments. And then,
not much direction. The research director was involved.
No, he was smart. And he was helpful. But he was definitely like throw in the deep end of the ocean and just figure it out. Yeah. And that's how I work best. I actually need to be thrown into the deep end to like figure it out, because otherwise like I'll just question everything, and that just drives people nuts. Yeah. So it was good that I was a feral human. I've since learned to like work with people, but I'm still kind of a feral human. So I was working at that company, and then that didn't work out. So then I went back to Scripps, and then I was like, I'm gonna go do a postdoc in Oxford. That sounds fun, because I had this idea for protein sequencing, and I was like, that'll work. And it was like this idea, basically. Like,
wait. So did you go to Oxford?
Oh yeah.
Oh shit, dude. That's like you took a shot. They say you don't get any scores unless you take shots. And Oxford, I understand, if you don't get in, you will never ever get in again.
Well, I went there, and then but before I went, I had put in an application for the Illumina accelerator for like this idea I had, which was this antibody barcoding and single-cell proteomics, multiplex immunoassay stuff, and somehow got into that. And then when I was at Oxford, when I was flying back, deciding if I was going to postdoc in Oxford or do this company, I got an email from Illumina saying that we were in the final round. So then I flew up to SF and pitched in front of like the CTO of Illumina, all these other guys, and terrified out of my mind. I was like, 28, 20 something, still in my 20s. And then ironically, what I pitched was the thing that we should have done with the first company, but it's fine. And it was basically just like, we're going to make these, because I came up with this way of doing like really rapid bioconjugation of antibody to DNA barcodes. And so I could do, this company Olink got bought by Thermo for billions of dollars. Like, it was the exact same idea. And when I pitched to Illumina, I was like, these would be great as reagents to sell to researchers because they're gonna want to do this, and then eventually it'll be diagnostics, and you can sell this stuff. And but VCs are like, well, you got to do therapeutics, or you got to do like some crazy diagnostic, and so it just did not get funded. But now, in retrospect, like that's what everyone does. They have like antibody DNA barcode conjugate reagents for single-cell proteomics multiplex immunoassays.
Yeah.
So the lesson is basically don't listen to investors. Just do what you want, and then you'll end up doing the right thing.
Yeah, so there are a couple of points in that. So first, I think we're in the age of the solopreneur, especially with AI.
Yeah.
And so you can return back to become that feral human, right? Using AI agents
100%.
for things that involve just software-related stuff until we kind of interface with robotics better. You still need people moving stuff around and maybe some simple code to move machines. Yeah. But you don't need to hire a ton of software engineers.
No.
Right.
Definitely not.
Right.
Like, you just have to be... You just have to like, you got to know the problem you want to solve, and then you have like 12 AI coworkers that just like help you get there, and then it's just like this chaotic dirt path to the thing. Yeah, I mean, software engineers are a interesting bunch because they're very, very opinionated, which makes sense because software is a nightmare if it's not organized, clear. But really, it's all about product.
Yeah, it's about, from my perspective, it's about design, knowing, having the vision of what you want to have built, and now it's just it's so quick to get it built.
Just plug in.
Yeah, and so you don't. But so, in terms of the other point with respect to listen or not to your investors,
controversial point. Yeah, there is some nuance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because as CEOs, we're responsible to our shareholders, right? Yeah. So you of course have to listen to them, and that's assuming they're actually talking to you, right? Because sometimes they don't have to be talking to you.
I don't mean don't listen to them, but I think you have to do the thing that you have conviction in, because otherwise, if you don't, you end up like trying to please everyone,
right? And
then you just go off in various directions. You're like, what am I doing? Like, I don't even care about this thing that I've been working on over here. I want to do this thing,
right?
And then like I think as an entrepreneur, like it's like you only have X amount of fuel.
Yeah.
And if you get depleted faster, you're going to burn out faster.
Right.
So you need to have like this. And then like every piece of good news gives you like an extra 3%, and then like it's just a K after that. So you have to like just minimize your depletion rate so that you just don't burn out, and you just extend as long as possible. And like part of that is like passion and like purpose.
Right. Because
otherwise you work on something you don't care about. You're like, whatever. I don't even want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Well, so the same graph, it's cash position too.
Yeah,
right?
Cash.
So, you raise a ton of money.
Too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a big mistake.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's funny for those out there trying to start gigs.
Yeah.
Your advice.
Don't take money. No, it's I think the thing is I made a lot of mistakes. The biggest mistake was there's multiple mistakes. The big one though is it's focus. You have to do one thing at a time. And that's why I said, like, you really have to have conviction in the one thing that you believe in, because if you don't do that thing, you're going to try to please everyone and do a lot of things in parallel, and then it just you lose it. You just lose everything. And then as soon as you lose focus, there's like it's like exponential decay of focus.
Yeah.
And then you really have no idea what's going on. And the only way to if you don't know what's going on, then you start throwing money at problems to try and solve the things that you don't actually have like full oversight and diligence on. Because I think there's this thing on Twitter, like founder mode and manager mode. Like you have to be founder mode you have to have founder mode psychosis about the one thing that's the most important thing in the company, and you only do that thing, and then you do the next thing, and you have psychosis about that thing, you do the next thing. But if you have like 3 things, even if you have like a direct report and you're like, here are your 2 priorities, they're like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. So you have to have like one singular thing at a time, and then you just do one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. And if you raise a lot of money, everyone's like, we're going to do everything. And then you just, you lose all your money.
Yeah.
So I'd never want to do that again.
Yeah, you think about this, and what you just described again. It's similar to building a customer base, right?
Yeah.
You can go and try to build this product that you think everyone's going to buy, and so
Yeah.
you're trying to build the scale. I'm going to have hundreds of customers. No.
Yeah.
Try to get that one customer, that
Just
first
one,
customer,
100%.
and that gives you the focus.
Yeah.
And if you like it and you're passionate, which is key, passion is key.
Yeah.
Then you start building actually what people truly need.
That's right.
And then you grow from that, and then before you know it, you get the second customer, and then you split, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you've just described.
Yeah.
But for folks who try to build all with this in vacuum, it's failure.
Terrible.
Yeah, and there's no question non-dilutive revenue is the best.
Yeah.
Customer revenue is just, it's like crack, you
Yeah.
know. And there's no better high than closing
100%.
and getting non-dilutive revenue coming in, right?
Yeah. They're like, oh, someone paid me to do something? That's fantastic. Because otherwise it's like, it's hopes and dreams.
Right.
And money gives you arrogance to think that your hopes and dreams are correct. But you have to be poor. Like, you have to be so poor that you're like, your paycheck to paycheck as a business, which is not like good, obviously.
Right.
But then like that is what allows you to have like extreme focus and say no to like spending money here, doing this over here, doing over that, because it's like you're like, if we don't get this one thing, like, we're dead as a company. And you have to have that mentality the whole way through until all of a sudden you're making money. But then you still have to assume you're going to lose because there's so many smart people that are just angling to beat you no matter what you do.
Yeah. There's no question that you're constantly running in those forces.
Yeah.
But again, in terms of the number of people and the amount of cash, I think we are in the era of solopreneurs, where you can
100%.
pretty much start companies, and you only add when it's absolutely critical because you are totally oversubscribed.
Mm-hmm.
But as opposed to just mass hirings.
Yeah.
And even when you get a big client and the big cash flow comes in, it takes discipline to just sort of
Very
hold
hard.
back and say, no, we're not
Yeah.
going to hire a ton of people because I want
100%.
to take it easy.
Yep.
Big air
Yeah.
if you do that. So nowadays, I mean, you raise a chunk of money, just throw it in a
Treasury
federal money
account.
market. But
100%,
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, cutting
Live
the
off
notion, like,
interest.
I used to hear this story when I was at Affimax, that you spend money, actually, I think it was at MDL, spend money as if it's your own.
100%.
And if you think in that context, I never want to cut into principal. So you do a raise, you're like, thank you for that principal.
Yeah.
I ain't cutting into it. And
Yeah.
so anything that we're going to get in terms of even additional money either comes from a money market or clients, but
Yeah.
no more investors.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's the only way to do it. You got to hold on to it.
Yeah.
It's really hard not to, because because everyone always wants something.
Yeah.
Like, you'll have like an employee, they see the raise, they're like, well, now I get a raise.
Yeah.
And then that goes to the next raise, and that goes to the next raise, and goes to the next raise. And all of a sudden, everyone's getting paid out of their mind. Like, 2021 was crazy.
Yeah.
There was a junior developer that had just got her master's that wanted 160K. And I was like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm barely making 160K.
Yeah.
And, but it was just like, it was a level of, not arrogance, but like arrogance. And now I think like everyone's just been so shellacked by the market that it's forcing them to kind of reevaluate their value, because AI is taking everyone's jobs.
Yeah.
And it's just going to keep taking everyone's jobs.
Yeah, or at least the phrase is AI won't take the job. It's someone armed with AI that will
Yeah.
take the job, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're not embracing it, you're hosed.
Yeah.
Especially in a knowledge worker space we are in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's amazing. So that was your first major
It was a big
play,
one.
right? The big raise,
It was a
and
big
then
one.
we don't have to mention names.
Yeah.
But now you have a new gig going, right?
New one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is
It was
how's it going?
It was inspired by the problems we had in the first one. Because the first one was like this really, really complicated tech stack that needed a lot of people to run it just to get some data squeezed out. It was like, there was this company called Juicero. It was like this smoothie company where there was like this really complicated machine to like squeeze a juice pack to get some lemonade out or a smoothie.
Yeah.
And they like raised a bunch of money, and they're like, look at this machine. It's amazing. And then like this guy on Twitter or YouTube was like, he held the thing in his hand and just squeezed it, and
That's great.
and then it came out. So that we were Juicero. Yeah. We were like this really, really complicated tech stack that no one really cared about, but it was really, really interesting. And it was just like the initial idea was the thing we didn't end up doing, which is, it's just the recurring theme. And ultimately it's on me, so I take full responsibility for everything.
It's like, and the last thing I want to have is a crash after this next cool story.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Here's the meat.
Where's the meat?
Yeah.
Where's the beef?
Yeah, we had this, we had the Juicero of companies. So sad. It was really cool. It was really cool tech. A lot of really like smart people got it to work. But effectively it was like this, just a way of finding functional molecules against a target of interest. It was in microfluidic chips and instruments and libraries and all this crazy stuff. And we were generating a ton of data, and then we were handing it over to a medicinal chemist, and he was like, doing matrix multiplication in his brain to like figure out, what the best molecules were. Yeah. And it just wasn't scaling. It was really, really slow. And then so we hired this really, really talented AI guy. You know him.
Yeah.
I saw him. And he came in, and I actually didn't think, I love Hassan, but I was like, I didn't know it was going to happen. He like had all these ideas. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen with all this data. And then he like made a model, predicted some molecules, everything worked. And then he shaved off months of time and thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. He was worth his weight in gold. And then I was like, oh, that's valuable. So we just need lots of data, and then we get some AI guys on it, and then we make models. And then instead of like waiting weeks and hiring medicinal chemists and wasting all this money and all this time, then we just get molecules drop shipped in like couple weeks, and then people can start launching discovery programs. So I was out in Boston, just like thinking of like this next idea, and I was talking to someone from Relay Therapeutics, and she was doing DNA coded libraries with machine learning, and she said something in passing, and then I like tongue in cheek was like, well, it'd be really cool if we could just like get proteome wide data on all these different hundreds of millions of molecules binding, so that we get just massive data sets, so we don't have to do screening anymore, and then we just get the models, and then we just use models to just launch discovery programs fast. We have like this foundation model for small molecule discovery. And then I just kept on thinking about the idea, and eventually came up with something that works. So that's what we're building out now. So basically we have like this pretty cool stack, way simpler than the Juicero that was the previous company, where I basically do proteins, and I encode what they are, and they're on these like synthetic cell particles, and then I can take hundreds of millions of molecules, and it's this library on library scheme. I slam it all together, and then I have like this magic trick of basically spatially encapsulating all the different interactions, and then linking all the DNA barcodes together, and then just have this massive sequencing. That's what I was working on before I came. It was this like massive multiplex decoding informatics thing to decode what molecules bind what proteins. So it's like every day we could generate like 10 billion data points. So it's a lot of data, a lot of cloud infrastructure stuff that I'm doing. But the goal is just to get to a massive data set and then just let the industry go hog wild on it. So we're just going to screen everything, and then we're going to give everyone access. So it's not what everyone, investors want us to do. They're like, no, you got to be a therapeutics company. I was like, I've done this before, where like I listen to investors and then I do that and then I hate it. So I just tell investors flat out, I'm like, I'm not doing that. We're building this thing that everyone likes. And the irony of this is I'll talk to a customer and they were like, we want to sign tomorrow. Yeah. And so it's like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like customers are like all about it. They're like, this is amazing. Investors are like, well, that's great, but you got to be a therapeutics company. Yeah. And I'm gonna be right this time, so I'm just sticking to my guns, and we're just building this thing.
No, that's great. And then the notion of, in a sense, finding a way to crowdsource by if you're giving a lot of free access to this stuff. Oh yeah. Some of the experts in the individual therapeutic areas that are leveraging it, they sort of pay it back in some way.
That's the goal.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll find a way to monetize it. But at the end of the day, the toughest thing I realized long ago with software sales is actually getting awareness and getting people, on the mark, but just getting people to know what you've been building.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no better form of awareness than getting it out there, and people just use it and they tell other people in conferences, and before you know it, just a ton of people are using it. Yeah. And the fear a lot of the investors have is, well, then you're giving away everything. You'll never be able to monetize it. But they're just so wrong. You will always find a way 100%. To monetize it if you have that network of client interface, or at least colleagues.
Yep.
So I think it's cool. And so massive data. Every time you talk about Dell or any kind of DNA encoding, I always just go, you kind of limit your chemistries. Yeah. But something, maybe if you haven't thought about it, it's something to consider, labeling biomolecules, proteins, in a way to figure out which proteins are interacting with which proteins. And
we can do that too.
Yeah, but it's something to seriously consider about, because like small molecule interactions can only go so far. Yeah. And even the computational studies are often just single ligand, single protein. Occasionally you get a set of proteins together and a ligand interfacing them, but never like what's going on in nature, which is all these different biological machines just coming together and going around. But knowing who's getting together with whom is like half the challenge. You just don't know. But imagine using coding to do that. And
we can do that.
And the zippers of DNA, they glue to each other so well. Yeah. You can imagine a strategy to sort of, things that aggregate together. There's DNA zipped together, and they fall out, and you can characterize. Yeah, so 100%. Something to think about.
We that's the next thing. So we have because I reworked the workflow. Originally, it was only going to be compatible with small molecules. But then I gut it and twist it and break the tech a little bit. But now it's any library. So we can do phage display libraries, ribosome display libraries, mRNA display libraries. We do probably yeast display library. Any library you could think of, we could probably take it and screen it. And then the trick was how do I actually keep all these things stable, and then trigger a barcoding reaction so that nothing falls apart. And that was the hard part. But that works like a charm. So we're just it's gonna be cranking, and we're just gonna give everything, all the data we're just gonna make it available. Everyone gets access. We're not doing anything. What you want to do, you take it and you go launch a program.
And I'm certain there will be folks who say, "Well, look, this is great, but you probably know the data better than anyone else. So can we at least pay you to help us analyze the data, or maybe build a tool so we can better leverage the data?" And then those first customers come, well, you have them already, but they come in a way where you can truly get focused to build a business and do what you want to do, but that makes sense. And, they say you align your passion with your job and you never work a day in your life, right?
That's right.
And I totally agree. It's tough when those are out there raising money and funds and to sort of live off that, and it's just sort of a depleting scenario. Yeah. So
it's too much money. It's like if I raise $500 million, I'm already diluted down to 2%, which means I have to sell the company for $3 billion. Yeah. How many companies are going to buy my company for $3 billion? It's many. 10, maybe. Yeah. Eli Lilly, Pfizer, Novartis, Janssen. And they're only going to buy it if it's a home run asset, clinically validated target, killer phase 1, phase 2 data, and maybe phase 3 data. But then they know that everyone else is probably going to be gunning for it, so they can set their own terms and their own price. And unless you have something compelling, it's just a lottery ticket. You're going to fail 99% of the time. Yeah. And VCs don't care, because they're like, I'll just have 20 of these companies, and then one will win, and then 19 others are going to have career-ending, decisions happen, and then they got to go do the next thing. So it's really bad. It's you kind of just got to. You just got to do what you want that you think is going to be the most successful.
Yeah, the therapeutic space, I too have been in it for a bunch of years, right? And I have over the years just recognized that pharma is a business, right? And it's a pantyhose business, right? If they cured the illness, they'd go out of business pretty quickly. They want to be able to sell you a bunch of pantyhose that keep breaking, right? Yeah. And that's why they tend to focus on chronic disorders. And even in cancer therapies today are often treated in a chronic sense. You're on chemo for basically the rest of your life. Yeah. But I think staving off or avoiding as long as possible disease state is probably the better strategic approach.
Yeah.
Because once you're in disease state, it's so tough to get out, and it's so expensive to live within.
Yeah.
And we've got this aging population that's just a big elephant in the room, just crushing our medical system. Right. The cost of an elder patient and all the meds they're on is just far more than the society below is able or willing to pay for.
Yeah.
So I think the basic lifestyle things, the obvious things, like sunlight and sleep and eating well, those are like really critical.
Mm-hmm.
And you can stave off a ton of disease by focusing on that. But I think there's a huge amount of wellness space opportunity that can get people to even find other tactical changes. And I've said this before, and it just drives me nuts that these multi-billionaire players in social media. You look at Zuckerberg, you look at Musk, Bezos. I mean, these guys, they've got more money than it could do for generations, right? They're still kind of young, and they might not have started to experience some of these chronic diseases. And as soon as they start, then they'll say, "Oh shit, we need to put some heavy resource into medical treatments." And you look at Zuckerberg's Meta; they sit on a ton of content that is just mind-blowing. A great story on this one. So some friends post not too long ago that one of the parties had a stroke. Well, if you look at their Facebook posts over the last 2-3 years, you'd see Krispy Kreme donuts, McDonald's, like the foods that they would take pictures of were just clearly indicative of what would be happening down the road. And there's just piles of that information sitting in Meta, and we just have to mine it. So that to me is like, we got to get a way to get at that data. Because just like your data, it's you want to give it away and later monetize. Maybe they can think of a strategy to give it away in a identified way. Like, here's just images. And here's outcomes in numerical form that people can't say, oh, well, that's this person or that person, right? But it's that, I think, would be a huge game changer in our space. So, something to think about.
Yeah, it's hard. You have to it's like how do you monetize? I mean, people buy stuff all the time on Amazon to make themselves feel better,
right?
And then people love getting massages and going to Cabo and having a good time. So people definitely want to spend money on wellness. I think the hard part is is there even money for people to spend on wellness, or they so hamstrung on everything else?
But sometimes you just have to give things away so then people engage. So you have that relationship build, and then you find ways to monetize that later, right? And it could be just basic concepts, right? And I mean, for me, I focus a lot on sleep. Sleep is critical, right? And I just learn new things every day, just about what my journey has been, and I'm fine passing that on. And there could be multi-billion-dollar businesses, and every one of these ideas, I don't care. But eventually, someone's going to say, "Hey, well, let's do something together, and we'll monetize it." So, but it's not my focus.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of creative entrepreneurs like that. My wife's, my sister-in-law, I guess, she had this ring, the Oura ring.
Yeah.
And it's got sleep tracking and health tracking and all this stuff. And it's cool. It's not it wasn't weird looking like this Apple Watch. I don't know if I really like this thing. It's
too heavy.
It's too heavy. You're working out. It turns on randomly and starts yelling at you. But a ring is oh, that's elegant, and it does all the things that you would want. So I think there's opportunities like that. It's there was this one company that was I think they went out of business, but it was this patch that you could put on your arm, and it was a tattoo, and it was cool different tattoos, and it had the ability to check interstitial fluid, to see your biomarkers and stuff like that, and the tattoo would light up. And I was that's a cool idea. You could have a coat of arms tattoo type of thing, and then you're monitoring your health. So it's how do you create these little widgets that actually can become sustainable businesses where the information's interesting enough for people to pay, or do you just have to accept the fact that data in isolation is not valuable, only data in aggregate is valuable? And so then how do you structure the business model where you make it essentially free, but then like find the people that want the data in aggregate after the fact? Because it's like, it's the cart before the horse. Like it'd be great if we like did consumer genetic sequencing on everyone and it was free and then it was useful and then somehow it lowered my healthcare premiums because I gave away all my data. Like that'd be interesting.
Yeah, those kind of models. I just heard a discussion on this gentleman who was a part of the actuarial mortality determination group within a life insurance company. I don't know the exact title, but they apparently had some models that could predict people's likelihood of death to like the month. You know, based on all the blood panels they've gotten and all the foods and lifestyle. And like, apparently with some of these life insurance policies, you have pages and pages of stuff you have to provide, right? And, you know, their goal, of course, is to maximize the premium over a longer lifetime. So you'd think they'd be encouraged to then increase your lifestyle, wellness, healthiness. But they don't make that data available. And it would be, oh man, if they did, it would be game changing. And there'd be a ton of companies who'd, of course, be against that because they're selling drugs for. I mean, you think about it. When you're actually, how old are you now?
How old am I? 39.
39. Yeah, you're still an infant.
I got gray hairs in my beard now.
At least you have hair, right? Right. Well, so I mean, when I was a kid, I think I knew like one diabetic kid, and it was like a type 1 diabetic kid. And nowadays, there's tons of type 2 diabetes folks. And then, of course, that leads to cardiovascular disease, and it leads to neurological. I mean, our Alzheimer's tidal wave that's coming our way is scary as crap, especially with all the infectious diseases over time, and then metabolic dysfunction. All this stuff is just off the charts, going to be crazy. And a lot of the functional health docs will point out that a lot of things is just mitochondrial dysfunction. And so how do you dial into those things? Well, hormesis or hormetic stressors, things like cold plunges and saunas, red light, vibrate those suckers up, get the nitric to release. I mean, if you dial in the mitochondria in ways that not necessarily are pharmacologic, I think we'd have some game-changing improvement in health and wellness. So, but then again, finding what are those lifestyle activities to do that. And that's why I say, again, these social media houses just sit on a ton of data.
And how do you get the data, too? Like,
That's
how do you actually prove it?
Yeah. Well, do you have to? It could be black box it. As long as you, I mean, as a scientist, I know you want a mechanism of action. But at the end of the day, if you've got a black box that could take a bunch of inputs and say, do this, and you do this, and it's actually healthy, wouldn't you want to do this?
I think so. As long as it, like, makes me, because it's like, I go to Costco, and then I could buy I buy all organic, versus like non-organic. And like, I don't know what's going to happen. If I eat Cheerios every day, I'm probably not going to feel great. So there are some tests you can run.
Right.
But it's like, but I think unless you do something over and over and over again, like, it's like anything. If there's a 1% change, a 1% change, a 1% change, eventually you'll see it. But then it's like hard to ascribe what was the variable that actually caused this to happen.
Right.
So then you basically just have to be like that, who's that? Brian Adams or
Johnson, the
Brian Johnson.
Don't Die guy. The blueprint guy.
Yeah. It's like, there's a test. Like, he obviously looks like a 35-year-old and he's like 60 or something like that. Like,
he's not that old, but he's all, I contend that he probably just did that 2-year and a half study of just to build a supplement company. Cause now I'm like, come on, dude, really? I'm buying his cocoa, I'm buying his olive oil,
Oh, really?
Yeah,
he sells those?
Yeah. He's got a big supplement business right now. I mean, I dig the cocoa and actually I like the olive oil, but
he could be Photoshopped too. Like, he could just be all fake and like, he could be like this old man and he's just like really good at marketing because he's always like doing the Zen pose in Thailand. It's like, where is this guy? Like, does he really look like this?
Yeah, but that's the kind of discipline I don't think I could have. I'm sure you couldn't either. I mean, the guy wakes up, does this whole regiment, which we probably have similar regiments, but then his last meal of the day is like 11 or 12. I mean, it's crazy. In terms of time restricted eating, he is off the charts on this one.
He doesn't eat all day?
Yeah, he's pretty much
Really?
not until he like wakes back up and he has a real tiny window and he
Yeah.
stops eating early in the day.
Does that like work? Like fasting? Does that actually work?
I think time restricted eating is a very effective form of just hormesis again. It's sort of triggering enough stress where your body kicks in and says, okay, we're in a famine mode. You need to start, getting ready for a kill.
Yeah.
But then you don't go too far because it's just like, look at vegans. I mean, it's just
get
like,
tired.
I know, they like gaunt and you're like, come on, you want to hold them down and like stuff a cupcake in them or something.
Yeah. That's the reward. Don't eat for a day, have a cupcake.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But I mean, you don't want to take too much. Moderation is key, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, a lot of the longevity folks, I mean, they're still really young. I want to hear the centurions that are like $110, $120, and they're telling you that what were they doing, right? And I don't think many of those that have been interviewed.
Chilling.
You're right.
Chilling.
They're hanging with people, right? Having friends and stuff. They do a lot of hugging. They're exchanging microbiome.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I just talking with someone about this. Like, we have some friends that are big huggers, and I'm like, it's not so much I don't want to get sick. It's just like, if you were an Olympic athlete, you could be like, Bolt. I'd be hugging you.
Yeah.
Because I'll share that microbiome, but I don't want to be sharing microbiome. I want to leverage up on my microbiome.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm sure I could offend a ton of people with that one. I might have to edit that puppy out.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think that's. Prejudice. I mean, we just sharing microbiome, like singing. In the studio here, for example, I might mention this to you. Whenever I do have mixes, I sleep really well that night. Even if it's a short period of time, I get very concentrated sleep.
Yeah.
REM off the charts.
Really?
Yeah, and it's part of it's because I'm drumming, but I also drum not with a bunch of people at times.
That's interesting.
And I think it's it's a community experience. It's the sound, it's the lows, mediums, and highs vibrating. Yeah. But music's been with the human species for like beginning of time.
Yeah.
So I know we don't think we have to be overly complicated, and we certainly don't need to have these really small molecule pills to fix problems. I think we need to kind of get down to the basics.
Yeah, it's got to be healthy.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to like the only way to make money is to use somebody else. Like sell to somebody else, they buy something. Unless it's like a requirement, like a house, like food, like whatever it is. Like everyone's just trying to game each other to like buy this, buy that. So I think it's like, how do you create an environment in a world where everyone has infinite resources? And AI is kind of doing something like this, so that people have the capital, the time, the freedom to like then not have to focus on like spending 45 minutes driving to their job that they probably don't even really like that much, and actually just like go to the beach and like hang out, and then not have a plan, and then walk along the beach, and then maybe have some lunch. But at the same time, you also need like some level of purpose. So it's like, what's the ultimate balance of like productivity and but also having time for health? Because here people don't really prioritize health. I think San Diego's a little bit better.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty hard. Like, everything's really, really expensive. You got to work all the time just to like make ends meet. And then everything gets more expensive, and then you get taxed more, and you just got to keep on working. So then it's like you never really like catch up. So it's like, how do you solve that problem?
Well, so it's definitely a J curve, right? So there's a Goldilocks zone, right? Too much of anything's not good, right? Yeah. And you need a little bit of stress, so you need that purpose. Yeah. But you don't want too much stress, where and a lot of people I know that are fairly high net worth are constantly under a state of stress because it's self-induced, and it's like, chill a little bit, relax, once in a while, but then get back into it. Of course, I'm always the same way. It's like, I'd be working, right? But not doing, and it's elderly, for example, when they don't move, they perish pretty quickly, right? You need to be, engaged, and so that middle happy Goldilocks zone is tough to find. It's not necessarily one where you need to be really, really, really wealthy. I know there have been studies that show that after a certain level of income, you're not any happier. Yeah. And certainly with some folks that have big bucks, I mean, for example, I don't even get how Musk is doing what he's doing. I mean, it's like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, why would?
Yeah, and you're creating a ton of enemies. It's just like, first of all, focus. As a CEO, we know You got to have a little focus, right? And so Tesla's tanking.
Tesla's taking.
Tesla's. Do you have a Tesla?
I do.
Oh, dude.
I know.
Yeah.
I got an email from Rivian the other day, and I was like, I don't know, should I do it?
Yeah.
And then I also got an email from the Cybertruck team, and I was like, I don't know, should I do it?
Well, you don't have one of those stickers that say I bought this before.
No. I mean, he's definitely a lunatic, but he's also like really productive. But at the same time, it's like, I think no matter what, like really successful people will be hated.
Yeah.
And you know, I think people were hating on Jeff Bezos because he was jacked and he was dating the
15-year-old lady.
50-year-old lady.
By comparison, right?
And, and it's just like, you can't win.
Yeah.
So it's like, you just gotta like, I don't know, you gotta. I think Elon thinks he's doing himself a service, or like he's doing the right thing, but like what's his name, the Indian guy that was also part of Doge,
Vivek.
Yeah, smart guy, but he was like, you know, in order to really make a dent, you got to cut some fat, but you have to hit some muscle. We're definitely probably hitting the muscle.
Yeah,
I mean, government probably was like super bloated and. But then like I think they had like this metric of like we saved the taxpayers like $2,000 or something like that after like gutting 168 billion. And it's like, I don't know, $2,000. I'd probably pay $600 a year to like save the NIH. Like that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
So it's like focusing on the wrong things.
So did you get a grant from NIH recently?
NSF.
NSF?
Yeah.
Are they impacted?
The program director we had was fired, but then he was reinstated. And I was like, what the heck is going on right now?
Did he? You'd be curious. So when he was reinstated, did he get at the same level, or did they knock him down? Did he lose like tenure?
He was great.
Yeah.
But they're like, I have no idea what's going on. I get random emails. I'll get an email, then a PDF, then 2 emails, and the same PDF, and like, it's like, is this the government that's running? Like, what is going on right now?
Wow, and, that's great. Well, the reality is, government spends money on things that private companies aren't yet ready to. Yeah. They build the roads, right? Yeah. They build spaceships initially, and then the private toll companies come in, and then SpaceX comes in. It's like, yeah, well, the big money was spent solving the tough problems. Yeah. Right now, you're just you're drafting off of government. So it's a lot of folks don't recognize that without governmental spend, especially in science and research, we'd be hosed. Yeah,
there'd be no science.
Right.
Like, who's going to pay Phil Barron to do natural product synthesis, which is just really, really cool, insane chemistry, but there's no like clear application. Right. It's just like intellectual, jockeying, but it's like really, really valuable because then you can make new drugs. But I think you need, I do think like taxes needs to get redone though.
Oh yeah.
I had this one idea. I think it's crazy, but I think it'd be cool. Where like, it's not a consumption tax, but say like we paid taxes. I guess it is a consumption tax. So say like Jeff Bezos spends $1 billion on a yacht, and the consumption tax is 10%. There's consumption tax everywhere. Every time you spend money, there's like a percent that's taken off. But the trick is that if he spends 10%, like we have like a crypto wallet or some sort of account that's like a government account. That 10% then gets rerouted to someone randomly in America. So like someone in Chicago could wake up.
It's a little mini lottery every time.
Every time. So every time someone rich spends money, someone randomly in the world benefits. And then they go to Cabo, they have a great time, stimulate the economy, or it could be like Upstart.
It's a great idea because most people with the lottery spend the money.
Yeah.
So they will just be spending it everywhere around their local community, and it's.
Or it could be an entrepreneur that starts a company, doesn't have to raise money from investors, and then becomes the next Amazon. Like, we need that kind of flux, just chaotic flux, and then just let capitalism do its thing, but like kill the capitalism off the top, and instead of like just taxing and like it going to like. Another war machine that we probably don't need. Yeah. It just goes to like some random guy in Florida that was walking his dog, saw an alligator in the morning, and then like wakes up with like $1 million in his bank account, and his life changes. Like,
yeah. But I think it's a great idea because most people who get those winnings will not know how to invest. And just great examples. You look at the sports stars who come on to big money. They often they lose it. Yeah. But so that's a great idea, Bud. I mean, how do you but putting the infrastructure there, that would be kind of cool. But it's,
Yeah.
good idea. I mean,
Mhm.
ideas are a dime a dozen. The
They
big
are a
challenge
dime a
is
dozen.
implementation, right?
That's right.
Yeah. But the other thing with governmental spend, a lot of folks don't realize that, I mean, the individuals, government, I think, is one of the biggest employers, if not the biggest employer in the country, right? But the people are expensive, but it's these contracts, governmental contracts that
yeah.
are ginormous.
Yeah.
So much is outsourced.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of these companies I think are going to get crushed,
Oh, yeah.
you know, with the governmental,
Yeah.
reductions.
Yeah.
Look, I just have a new change on the camera I saw. Shit. So, let me stop this. Yeah. I'm getting fucking old.
Yeah.
So you have one or two kids right now?
One.
Yeah. Another
Yeah.
one on the way or not yet?
I don't know. It'd be a lot.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun, but the first one was pretty gnarly, so
Well,
I don't know.
You mean just like doesn't sleep much and
just
always
the
sick,
birth,
preschool? Oh,
the
yeah.
birth process
Oh.
was intense.
Yeah.
And it's like
Was your wife okay?
she was good, but
Yeah.
it was pretty it was intense.
Yeah.
Um,
I can appreciate that. Because, if men had to have babies, there would be no babies.
I know. We'd be like, what? I know.
Exactly.
I don't know how they do it.
I know.
It's like, it's terrible. And then and like after the baby's born, they have to like breastfeed,
Yeah.
and that looks like a nightmare.
Yeah.
And we just like wake up,
Right.
and that's it. We have the easiest job,
Yeah.
so you just have to. It makes you and I didn't realize how hard being a parent was until I was a parent. And then you realize like how does society function? Like how are all these people having kids and like still like functioning as like people in the world? It's a lot of work. But then it's like amazing. And then it just completely changes your perspective on everything in life. And then you're just like nothing matters except,
So, you
kids.
think about it, most of the early life is protecting and educating and getting the babies to be able to grow up into humans that can take care of themselves, right?
Mm.
If you think about the wild, right?
Mm.
There's so much instinct, right? And instinct is it's genetically passed, right? I mean, I see like my cat doing stuff that he'd never seen before. It's like, how the hell? Because it's somewhere.
Backflips.
Yeah. No, but I mean, things with respect to mating and things like that, right?
Yeah.
But I wonder why humans don't have as much of the instinct characteristic that the wild has. Or maybe it's there and we just haven't unlocked it.
We probably have instinct. We probably just don't listen to it. Because like you always like you'll get spider senses when like something's about to go down. Like you're like, fight or flight.
Yeah.
Or like you can sense stuff like someone's lying.
Yeah.
It's like you're a liar. That doesn't make any sense. But you can also have like instincts on like I'm gonna marry that one.
Yeah.
And then it's just like instant. Like you just know instantaneously.
Huh.
I don't know if that's instincts. But I think it's like your brain processes things that like you don't even like, you don't even realize.
Yeah, I just wonder how much from like a biochemical perspective, how much gene expression and epigenetics and all that is inherited.
Lamarckian evolution.
I don't know what that is. What is it?
That's like non-genetic evolution.
Uh-huh.
So like passing down like epigenetic markers, and then that's a change.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that like the Holocaust, stresses of the Holocaust can be felt multi-generations away.
Oh yeah.
And so maybe the methylation is still present in as it's passed.
Oh, yeah, probably.
But I don't know, maybe we just still haven't unlocked the black box called our brains, and maybe we could tap into a little bit more. But I mean, I just definitely see today's society is just devolving in so many ways. And when you're talking a little bit about the mechanistic approach with chemistry, I used to personify chemistry. Organic chemistry was one of those light bulb classes for me with mechanisms and stuff. And I used to think of molecules that had vulnerable areas and others that were aggressive. And I just, every time I saw a reaction, I would try to think about where do we see that in society, like a people's perspective. And it's so helpful because I've always said that the macroscopic mimetics the microscope. I said this to you a couple times at the breakfast place we hit once in a while, right?
Claire's.
So
good.
Yeah, it's like the Silicon Valley restaurant in Silicon Beach, right?
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Hash browns are good.
Yeah. Yeah. First time we got back to what I was saying, but the first time I remember I'm like ordering like avocado toast or something, and you got like this eggs Benedict,
Seared salmon Benedict,
like syrup,
hash
and
browns,
sweatpants,
sweatpants.
Probably like the wedding crashers. Remember the sea stacks and stuff, like spilling syrup on it.
Lemon ricotta pancakes. Might go there on the way back.
Yeah, but no, again, I think that there's opportunity to tap into this skull of ours in a way that. We can't keep on this trajectory of being so divisive and everyone just being that way or this way. We're not in a life form is not digital; it's analog. There's a bunch of things in between, right? And
I think it's because empathy isn't like an instinct. Like if something happens to somebody, everyone's like, "Oh, that sucks," and that's it. And then they don't like no one like understands what it means to like be that person or have that experience until like you put your hand on the stove and you have that experience.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest problem.
Huh.
But
do you think empathy is learned fully, not genetic?
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know. I think certain people are just nice and then some people do empathize. My wife's like a way bigger empathizer. Well, she feels more and she cares more, but I'll like empathize more, which doesn't make any sense. Like I'm less like touchy feely, but I'm just like if someone's going through some shit, then I'm like I like get into that mode. I'm like I gotta like help. I literally have to like bring them out of that.
Yeah.
So but I think that's because like I've been in those moments where it's like you're like in the deep trenches of hell,
right?
And then like. It would have been great to like have like someone like help a little bit. So I do think it's like learned because it like sets your registry in terms of like what's the dynamic range of chaos I can tolerate. So that part's probably learned, but then like the personality trait of like how you deal with things is probably not learned. That's probably just like innate.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly an increase on folks that are on the spectrum as we see it. Talking about Musk, I mean, he's totally on the spectrum, right? And he's normalized it to a certain extent, which is good. I've always said anyone who has a kid who's borderline or fully fledged autistic that this could be a superpower because it gives them opportunity to totally focus, right? And I think they often don't have empathy. Right, so they're maybe incapable of learning.
Interesting,
and maybe that is because they don't have the sensory perception. But again, I'm an expert. I'm wondering how many people who work in this space will see autistic kids that have experienced something that they become empathetic with others that might be experiencing the same thing. I just don't know.
I think they're probably empathetic. They're just like, it might just be like they haven't had the experiences to like give them certain moments of empathy. But I don't know. It's like, I've seen, there's a bunch of, I've seen autistic kids that just like, they don't have that connection and it's like really sad.
Yeah.
But there's no, it's like, what do you do? Yeah, but I do think like they realize it and they probably like they just don't have the tools to communicate it.
Yeah, we're pattern recognition beings, right? And I've always likened it to interpolation versus extrapolation. If something that you've experienced is not identical or too very close to what you've experienced before, certain folk really have challenge with that. They can only work on the exact example set that they've been trained on, and others of us have sort of this fuzzier, can get out of that curve a little bit and be more
Yeah.
extrapolative. And then, of course, some folks can just like draw these major extrapolations. They're like, how would you get there,
Yeah.
right? But what was it, Steve Jobs that said it's always easier to draw a line or connections moving backwards, you know, from like,
Yeah.
how did I get here? But going forward, you can't really do that or something
yeah.
to that extent. Yeah, something similar. But so
It's,
I don't.
it's hard to simulate experience because you have to like be in it.
Yeah,
Like it's like, you know, if you lose like a loved one, they pass away, like there's no way to experience that without like it actually happening.
right.
And so if you don't have that and like you observe it from afar, it's almost like you disconnect from it. You're like, I cannot imagine, because you literally cannot imagine like what that's going to be like. And it could be like anything in, you know, it's like anything in life. So I think you have to kind of experience it just to like not allow your brain to like cheat out of experiencing it like mentally. I think meditation maybe can kind of get you there if like you really kind of like get deep into something, but you got to like pull the curtain up a little bit to really feel stuff.
Do you dream a lot?
I dream that I don't remember anything.
You don't remember it,
Yeah.
but you remember some dreams once in a while, right?
I get like the cliff notes in my dreams.
Yeah. Summary.
I'll wake up and I'm like, I don't know. And then that's it. My wife
Interesting.
remembers, she was telling me this morning, she was like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this. I was like, what is going on right next to me? Like, I don't even know what that is. I don't remember anything. It's like, which is sad. But I think your brain, though, like, it teaches you lessons.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, like, there has to be something going on up there that's, like, telling you, like, to learn something. But oftentimes, like, I'll have, like, zombie apocalypse dreams or, like, asteroids hitting the Earth. And it's like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means. That's not teaching me anything.
Yeah. So I've always, I dream a fair amount now. Actually, I think I always have, but I wake up after a dream. And so because it's like I think because you don't wake up after a certain period of time, you've probably forgotten. But if you wake up like right either midst or like right when a dream is coming to a close,
then you remember
you
it.
remember it, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'll have multiple awakens throughout the evening at the end of REM cycle. And I get to the point where if I don't have 4 or 5 different types of dreams each night, I actually kind of get pissed. Because, first of all, yeah, I mean, because I know that meant that I just had less than 5 REM cycles, and I want to have 5 REM cycles.
Okay.
But the big danger I found is that if you wake up and you actually start analyzing the dream, oh, you're hosed. You're not going to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
You know, so I just wish there were a way to sort of just capture it and then just do the clip notes, if you will, to just store it and then come back to it and then later analyze it.
Yeah.
I think we'd learn a lot.
That probably
But,
would.
yeah,
That's an app.
there's an app for that.
Yeah, basically just like you know, Dream Scribe.
Yeah,
That's cool,
there you
man.
got
Dream Scribe.
great title. Now ideas are dime a dozen. Got to implement that puppy, right? But
Maybe
yeah.
later.
Anyway, any other things you want to hit while we're chatting? Yes, you know
The band's gonna be playing tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's right. You're gonna introduce what's this next segment we're gonna hear? I haven't picked it yet, but it's I pull from some of these mix and matches I do as a clip, and I try to do at least 3 or 4 a month. So I usually have one for the month that we're doing this. But this month we've been a little behind. A lot of people have been sick, and it's. But I mean, like I said, it's really cool. It's one way to bring people together who haven't. Actually, I've gotten some overlap where they have been, as a full group, been not together, but subsets have been together. And if you're, do you still play? You said you played many years, but you don't still play.
I had this guitar, and the action like was always like off, and then I always had to like tune it. But then I had like these little like wooden plugs to like hold the strings in, and they would always fall out. So I got frustrated with my guitar, and I stopped playing. But I actually now have a new guitar, and that one's great. It's got lower action. You can like rip through it. So now I'm starting to play again.
So interesting. So you know Bryce Allen when we were asking,
Yeah.
and he's just around the corner. I was.
Oh, is he close?
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
nice.
literally like a few blocks that way, and
nice.
he's got his lab. And he, how do you know him?
He's a smart guy.
Yeah, how do you know him?
My co-founder from 1859 brought him to a brewery, and then I started chatting with him. And then he's been like helpful in like other areas, but he's like super smart.
Yeah. So it turns out he was the first grad student of a guy I worked with for many, many years, Stefan Schur, who's a professor in Miami. And Bryce reached out a few months back, and because he's got Stefan, and I said, yeah, why don't you meet me in the studio? And he just comes, and we just sat down. I said, hey, do you don't mind me recording this? We did a mini podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
so,
awesome.
but then I asked him if he's in town because I knew we were doing this, and I actually, after asking you if you knew him, I was going to have him come in and then we'd do like a 3-way, right? But then I'm starting to think, he's a musician too. Do you know that?
Is he?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and he plays bass.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
if you play guitar.
Yeah, that's the full band.
Yeah, we just need to
And
get
I got tambourine over here.
You can't play tambourine and guitar. That's for
one man. It's like Mary Poppins. Just like
no, but I could see if we know. I always like to have backline first bass and drums, and then need at least one or sometimes two guitars, and then a vocalist. But do you know any people from your slurry of people you hired and fired that can sing?
I know. Who can sing?
Be interesting to have a like a little quick gathering of C execs in the biotech space.
That'd be cool. Who would sing? Who would be a good singer?
Oh, that's something to think about. But again, what we do is it's usually the singer's usually the one who picks the song that we play at that time, and sometimes the guitar guy will strum something out, we'll go there. But then most people don't know it, and we listen to a little bit of on Spotify, and then since I have the controls over there, after I get through at least maybe to the chorus, sometimes I don't even get there. I just say, "Fuck it, we're playing." For me, it's just to see what's the BPM, and I just hit pause. I said, "We're going," and people are like, and we just jump into it. And sometimes it's fucking amazing.
Really?
It's amazing. Yeah.
That's fun.
Other times it's a train
and
wreck.
People just like figure it out and they just like start jamming.
Yeah, I mean,
That's cool.
we actually there's some musicians that come here that are just like Berklee School of
Really?
Music guys that are just crazy good. They can play every instrument. Yeah.
Wow.
And they just listen to it just a little bit and bam, they've got it.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's crazy.
I want that. I've never been able to do. I tried so hard to like figure out like, like just hear notes. I just can't do it.
Yeah. So when you hear a note, you don't know if it's a C or
No
an
idea.
A. Oh, yeah. That's maybe we shouldn't do a jam.
I could like slide up and down the fret and be like E, F, G, A, and I'm like, oh, that's a C, and then I'll like get the scale, then I can like rip on it. But
yeah, well, I understand. Like Paul McCartney didn't know how to play either, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he pick up? But look what happened there.
Yeah.
Look, you can't be good at things out of the womb, as we talked about at the beginning, right? You have to.
Jack of all trades, master of none. It's like a little, 80%. I'm 80% across the board. There's like nothing I'm like amazing. Well, there's like maybe a couple things, but it's like I wouldn't even say 80%. Maybe 50, 70.
Yeah, that's
But then it gives you creativity.
Huh?
It gives you creativity though.
Yeah. Well, it depends again on how much time you spend on something. So if you've done something for well over 10, 30,000 hours, whatever it is, the number, you're going to be pretty good at it, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's almost impossible to suck at something if you've done it over and over and over again for decades and decades.
I know.
But
I'm a Jedi at like chemical biology.
are you?
I'm good at that. I can do anything there. But